Welcome back. This is Femme Finance, and I'm your host, Debbie Whitlock. Joining us this morning is American woman Kim Crumpler. She is a style visionary who has discovered the magic of living her authentic essence and style and enthusiastically helps others achieve the same. Her company, Uniquely Savvy, was founded in 2000 and delivers customized style solutions to clients with diverse lifestyles and branding objectives in Seattle and across the country. Welcome to Femme Finance, Kim Crumpler.
Thank you, Debbie Whitlock. I am so honored to be here with you.
I'm so excited. I felt like a little girl all week thinking about having you on the show. So you and I met probably, 2 years ago it was, maybe?
Yes.
Okay. So, And I have to admit, there are people who, and I think those of you joining us today, you've had this experience. Like, you see someone at a cocktail party, or you see someone at a women's professional event or a networking event, and you think, I don't know who she is, but she's sparkly, and there's something about her that makes me want to get to know her. And Kim, you have been one of those women for me, and as I've gotten to know more about you, I can just think of very few people who embody this idea of American woman more than you. So I'm glad to be able to have you share the story, because it is quite an amazing one. So for those of you joining us today who don't know Kim, let's start with this. A little bit of the background. This really, what I was thinking is, this is kind of the conversation you and I had at Jimmy John's that day, having sandwiches. What has your journey been like from fear to freedom?
Wow, it's big. That's a loaded question.
Yeah, let's start with the small questions, right?
Yes, exactly. How much time do we have? So the journey from fear to freedom, it's, well, let me just share with you that I was adopted when I was an infant into a white family, and I'm Black and Japanese, and which is beautiful.
Yes.
And but I was adopted into a white family in the early 70s, and life went on. My parents ended up getting a divorce when I was 6, and at that point, my dad, who I love, went on to start his new life and took a couple of the kids with him. And my other siblings eventually lived with him at different times, but he left me behind to live with my mom. And so that was a big time for me in terms of embracing fear and worry and doubt. And that was really the beginning of the message. Boy, something must really be wrong with me. Inherently, I am unlovable. So that was sort of the beginning of that. Well, I went on to Federal Way. My mom and I moved to Federal Way, where it was very homogenous back at that time.
For those of you who are not from Washington, Federal Way is very much a, let's just call it especially in the early 70s, it was a loaf of Wonder Bread.
Yes.
So for a non-Wonder Bread slice in the loaf, I bet that adjustment was a little bit difficult for you.
Yes, and we love Wonder Bread.
Right, exactly.
But yes, what a tricky challenge.
Right.
I mean, really, here I was in the 4th grade. I think there was one other little black gal that went to school with me, and we weren't even, friends. But yes, I really didn't fit in. I didn't belong, and society let me know I didn't belong. I didn't fit in with the white community. I certainly didn't fit in with the black community. Because I had quote unquote white, characteristics, the way I talked, the way I, walked, the way I danced. So, and beyond all of that, because I was, really feeling depressed and what's wrong with me and away from my siblings, I started to eat, became overweight. I was very understyled. And P.S., we grew up in poverty at that point. And so society, as you probably remember and know and perhaps have experienced, is very judgmental. And they treat you based on how they see you. So though I was just an innocent young kid, I had a lot of judgments, and so it all ended up in, lack of self-esteem and, poor self-concept and image.
Right.
To name a few.
Right, exactly. That's just the top of the list. So, so let's just suffice it to say that you arrive as an adult with a little bit of baggage, or perhaps what I sometimes refer to as opportunities to grow. How did this vision of yourself as a young woman affect the adult woman you transitioned through and now have become?
Awesome question. Well, let me say, if I can, I'll go back to and wrap up one piece of that childhood story. Is here's the beautiful part of this, and it transitions into me being an adult. But what happened is when I was about 13-ish. I mean, it was so bad that I remember honestly looking in the mirror with big tears coming down, wondering, what if I just took a Clorox bath? That's how much I wasn't comfortable in my own skin. But the beautiful thing is that something got a hold of me that said, you know what, Kim, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. That regardless of the color of your skin or the big curves that you're carrying, your big hair, your Coke bottle glasses, you are worthy to be celebrated. And really that was the turning point for me because I was suicidal at that time. And that's the turning point. And what I want you to know is it changed with the thought of changing my thinking. And Jim Rohn, who's a business philosopher, he puts it best when he says, I sure hope things would change for me, but then I realized nothing was ever going to change until I decided to make a change.
Right.
And so I did. And I started turning my nickel into a quarter and learning how to, dress my shape and my style at the thrift stores. And really started coming up with ideas around, who am I as a person? What is there to celebrate? And really getting connected with the inside. But as I traveled on into adulthood, I still carried some of those limiting beliefs that I had from childhood, the fears, those sorts of things. So I didn't have a good GPS, a solid GPS as a good roadmap. Limiting beliefs, fears, toxic relationships, those are some of my outcomes as an adult.
Right. And so one of the things that, for those of us who know you, and I think for everyone joining us who's getting a sense of Kim, is that you're hearing as she's describing her personal journey, this is a continued journey. There is not, and I think one of the things that connects me to Kim is that there's this fundamental belief that it is a constant evolution.
Right.
And it's okay that there's not necessarily a destination.
Right.
I don't ever feel like I'm going to come to this place where I have arrived.
Right.
I always think there's more opportunity and more growth and more development that can happen.
Yep. That's what I embody.
You talk a bit about the toxic relationship piece. You find yourself married. You divorce, right? Mm-hmm. And now you transition to entrepreneur.
Right? Yes, that's an interesting story.
We could spend the entire hour just in that segment of your life alone.
Yes.
How did you decide Uniquely Savvy? How did you know from an entrepreneurial standpoint that, you took those nickels and made them grow and in thrifty, budget conscious ways were able to create an exterior image that was more palatable for people, in mainstream America, and also was doing that work on the inside. And I want to come back and talk about that piece. But talk to us about creating Uniquely Savvy and what that journey was like for you, because you just celebrated 10 years in business.
Sure did.
That is no small accomplishment for an entrepreneur, a solopreneur. That is a huge accomplishment. So tell us about Uniquely Savvy.
Thank you. Okay. So that story takes us back to college. So I'll just share really quickly that when I went to college, I thought I was going to be a lawyer. And then I thought I was going to be a psychologist. And I thought, you know what? Reach back and find out what has really made an impact on your life, Kim. Find your passion. At 18, I don't know what made me think about this. I was probably 19, but find your passion. What has made an impact and explore that. Well, what had really impacted me was the difference that being comfortable and confident in your own skin had and on myself and how I showed up in the world. And I thought, you know what? Two things. Number one, if I experience the negative of this, so must other people.
Right.
And if I experience the joys and the freedom on the other side, so can other people. So I wanted to empower and to teach people about style and imaging and how to be comfortable and confident in their own skin. So I majored in fashion, majored in management, minored in business in college. But when I was married, I was just working sort of temporary jobs because my ex-husband's career just had us sort of traveling in and out of the state. And obviously there was a fear piece in there too. Well, I can't start my own business, even though I knew that that's what I wanted to do since, college. Right. Well, in 2000, I found myself newly separated, sleeping on someone's floor as I had just moved back to Washington. And my friend said, "Hey, Kim, when are you going to start this business of yours? I graduated in 93. It's 2000. When are you going to start this? I needed you 2 weeks ago." So she was a realtor, and I said, okay, all right. And really, in my mind, this is the thought is, it doesn't get worse than this. I'm already at the bottom, so what is there to be afraid of starting my business now? I have nothing. Right. I didn't even have money. And so that's how I started Uniquely Savvy, with one realtor. And 10 years later, I'm very humbled and very honored to be invited into this private space of people's closets and their wardrobes and their minds and their psychology to really help them explore, their brilliance from the inside and out, and really dress to let that shine. It's quite phenomenal.
Yeah, you definitely have a gift. We're going to run off to a break real quick, Kim, and when we come back, I want to hear more about the services that Uniquely Savvy provides, then talk about some exciting projects, including a new collaborative book that you have just released. This is Debbie Whitlock, and you're listening to Femme Finance on the I'm Thankful Network. Welcome back. This is Debbie Whitlock, and you're listening to Femme Finance on the I'm Thankful Network. Today, we're talking to personal style and branding coach, shopper, speaker, and author Kim Crumpler of Uniquely Savvy. So before the break, Kim, we'd heard about her journey, the beginning of this from fear to freedom journey. And I think acknowledging both of us and recognizing that freedom is not an ultimate destination. It's just one of the places that we have an opportunity to stop and celebrate the growth that we're doing, right?
Right.
So we were talking about Uniquely Savvy and the personal style and branding business. And I said this to you in the green room. And I, as I've gotten to know you, I've had over the years an opportunity to get to know personal stylists and personal shoppers who, help you put together the outfits and shop your closet and do that. But one of the things that's always struck me about you is this ability that you seem to have to look deep inside the client that you're working with, cultivate what it is that's unique and special about them, and then bring that forward through what those of us seeing them on the outside see.
Right.
So talk about Uniquely Savvy and some of the services that you do, and then I want to talk a little bit about what you've learned as an entrepreneur.
Okay. Yes, I am passionate about that piece that you just talked about, which is helping people to really discover that which is unique and brilliant and special about that person, whether it's their skills or their talents or abilities or hidden passions. Or some unique parts of their personality, but giving them space to talk about that and explore it and find it and bring that forward is phenomenal, and then to dress it. So that's our first part, is to really discover who that person is. And then, very clearly we teach people, we really coach people how to best dress their shape, regardless of size, regardless of gender. So I work with both men and women.
Right.
And their colors, what are the best colors that really enhance their eyes, their hair, their skin, teach them how to dress for their lifestyle, for their careers, to make sure that how they are showing up on the outside really is an authentic expression of who they are on the inside. And I just think it's very powerful when there's alignment from the inside out. Mm-hmm. People just show up so much more energetic, and they really just attract more out of life. It's amazing.
I love that. And for those of you who haven't had a chance to sit across from Kim Crumpler, I really encourage you to do that, because when she gets really excited about something, she winks at you like, that's the secret that I just shared with you. And I absolutely love that. It always makes me feel so good. It's just fantastic. I don't even know if you realize you do it, but it always just warms my heart up. So, two stories to share. For those of you who can see me on the camera today, and those of you I've ran into already this morning, I am dressing my unique self today as my unique and special athlete for the Rock and Roll tomorrow. So I'm getting myself in the zone. Woohoo! And, got my gear on and whatnot. But, one of the things I remember, it was about a year ago, that I had an opportunity to participate in an event, and it was a picture business competition. And one of the things I had really not thought about initially, and then after hearing you speak one previous time, had really given some thought to, was how I was going to show up and appear on that stage in front of 3,000 people. And so I'd put together an outfit, and it was awesome, because you walked into the room and you looked at me, and it was at a networking event, and I wanted to wear this outfit that I had never put on before, and I wanted to put it on in front of people who knew me, and to see that reaction, and to just get comfortable with that, right? Because when you show up, one way typically, and then you appear as a whole new person, that can be real overwhelming. And I just remember you walked up to me and you went, wow.
Yeah, I'm still wowing.
Right? This is it. In fact, you sent me that picture the other day. There's a picture of Kim and I together where she was speaking at this event, and it was definitely a wow moment. And you really impact people that way. You really do.
Thank you.
What do you think some of your greatest rewards are in this personal style and branding practice that you've cultivated for yourself? What are the things that light you up the most about your work?
Mm-hmm. So really what lights me up the most is seeing people really step into more of their own, whether that's they feel more confident or they are tapping back into that which was lost or hidden or maybe not explored on the inside. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I work with people, I work with lawyers, I work with full-time moms, I work with 15-year-old little girls. It does not matter. When it clicks for them, when they see it, and when someone is holding a mirror to them and giving them permission to be who they are or to explore who they are, and you see them light up, that's rewarding. That's really rewarding. And it's really not about me. It's about the pure joy of seeing that ownership happen, because I know how transformational that is. Mm-hmm. Like someone wrote into me, they said, you know what, it's not just the clothes. Mm-hmm. The clothes helped me to feel more confident, which then helped me to explore personal growth in other areas of my life. Mm-hmm. That's huge. And it's not about me, but how fabulous for them. Because it frees up mind space to dare to dream, to take risks, to think of the possibilities of whatever, faith, life, relationship. I mean, could you imagine what life would look like if you were just a little bit more comfortable and confident in your own skin?
Right. And
I love it.
I think that's just a beautiful message that you share. And Kim, share with people, because I realize that we haven't done this yet. What is your website? How can people find out about you if they're listening online right now and they want to open another window and check out all your fabulousness? Where do they find you on the internet?
They would find me at uniquelysavvy.com, and that's SAVVY.com, uniquelysavvy.com, or, of course, on Facebook and LinkedIn.
Excellent.
Check me out.
Excellent. Yes. And Kim has quite a social profile and is definitely very active on Facebook, which is a fantastic thing. So let's transition now. We've talked about the personal style and branding business. And one of the things that I respect about you as a businesswoman and an entrepreneur is that you are in constant evolution. Uniquely Savvy fits a very specific place in terms of the personal style and branding piece of your business. But you identified over the last several years that there were other ways that you could serve the community, whether they were people who could work with you necessarily one-on-one or people who needed or had an opportunity to hear your message on a larger scale. And so within the last year, I know you've expanded your business to include motivational speaking, and just this last week became a published author, which we will talk about in a minute. But when did you know as an entrepreneur it was time to add more layers, more ways that people could work with you, perhaps before they had an opportunity to work with you one-on-one?
Right. I thought about that question, and I didn't have a knowing, honestly. Honestly, I think that some people have a solid business plan that they revise and revise and they revise, and I've got to do this and I've got to do that next, and I can add this and I can add that. And for me, slow and steady was always a guiding value for me in my business. And really how this happened is because as I, in my personal development and my personal growth, continued on my freedom journey and got, a lot more free, it was changing and impacting how I was showing up in work. And by the way, over 10 years of business working with individuals, I realized that fear is an obstacle that keeps a lot of people frozen from making other decisions, whether it's beyond just stylistically, it's professionally, it's relationally, etc. Make sense?
Yes. So
really, I was so passionate about the fact that, if you take risks and face your fears, there are amazing possibilities on the other side if you do that work. And so it just became this message of passion, much like the message of being comfortable and confident in your own skin from my childhood experience. Mm-hmm. So that's how it expanded. There was so much that I thought, gosh, if people could know, and if I could level the playing field by being very transparent about my own story, right, then they might accept the invitation to start their own freedom journey. Right. So it was just purely out of passion, and oh my gosh, I've got to tell somebody.
Right. Well, I think what I love about what I'm hearing you say is this idea of just adding these layers of development and opportunity for people to work with you inside your practice. And as I was listening to you just now, I was thinking about something that I've been writing about for a while, which is, as entrepreneurs and people who have a place in the public in our businesses, whether we're an employee or whether we have our own business or we do something, in addition to our career to supplement our income. One of the things that I always find really fascinating is when someone like yourself, who has been known as the personal style and branding expert, adds motivational speaking, adds author to their list of credentials, there are a couple, 3 things that start to happen. The people next to you, boy, the ones that are in that inner circle, they will carry you on their shoulders and shout from the mountaintops that there is now a new way that people can get more of the amazing you. And then there's people in that second group that they know you, but they don't know you real well. And so they hear this and they think, well, does that mean you're not doing personal style and branding anymore and you're only going to do motivational speaking and writing? And I think that goes to that fear and freedom piece, right? Because I think for a lot of us, and this is something that I've really been embracing, is this is the piece where we get stuck, like to go past that second tier of people, to finally stand on the mountaintop confidently on your own and say, here I am, Kim Crumpler, uniquely savvy. I am personal brand and styling coach, author, speaker, and this is all the ways that I can bring what I do and the gifts and talents that I have to share with you to find your gifts and talents. And I just really commend you for that, because I think there are a lot of entrepreneurs that are joining us today that we get stuck too much in that second group. The intimate circle tells us we can do anything and they'll support us in any way, but we bump into those few people that start to question us and ask because they're a bit confused on their own journey and it's not resonating with them. So I really would encourage people that, as you're developing your business, you'll know as there are times and things will come to you, right?
Right. That's at least what happened to me is, again, with that slow and steady, things will come, things did come to me, and I would just be patient, and I would, vision, envision what something could look like. And by the way, I thought I was going to add a life coaching arm to my business, one-on-one.
Right.
And as I dared to say it out loud, that one piece, and then I put it on my vision board so I could see it and just be open to it. That's when the other, the people, Laura Peasters, Ann Alberg, Brian Trashels, coaches and friends said, you know what, Kim, you will burn out if you do coaching one-to-one because you're so intensely connected with your clients that way. It's more like one-to-many. And so here's the deal, is you just take a step toward the possibilities and it will become clear.
And say it out loud.
Say it out loud. Say it out loud. Say it out loud. And when you say something out loud, by the way, that tends to burst the fear bubble.
I love that. All right, Kim. So hang on here because we're going to take a break here. And when we come back, I want to hear about This Incredible Life, the book that you and I have contributed to. This is Debbie Whitlock, and you're listening to Femme Finance on the I'm Thankful Network. So now, before the break, Kim Crumpler and I were talking about some of the secrets to entrepreneurship, some of the experiences that she's had. And one of the things that I've alluded to several times is that Kim's business has been an evolution, which I, as an entrepreneur, have a great deal of respect for. And this last year, she committed to becoming a published author and has collaborated and contributed to a book called Incredible Life. How did you decide this was a project for you, Kim? And did you know you always wanted to write?
Great. How did I decide this was a project for me? Well, again, it goes back to that passion piece. I mean, the fact that I just had a message, I felt like an invitation, really. It's an invitation for people to step into the possibilities of freedom. It was just so in my heart that when the opportunity came up, I still was a little uncertain. I had been asked by this publishing company to write on style 2 times within the last, the previous 2 months. I had an amazing apprentice, Sarah Zorn, who was with me, and I asked her, I said, Sarah, will you look over all of this material? Will you see if it fits with what Uniquely Savvy is about and our vision? And she actually did a great job of encouraging me to say, hey, take a look at this. Yes, absolutely, I think you should do this. For the book, it's The Incredible Life. So it's a life transformational book. It's a guide to help people live an incredible life. And so that's exactly what I'm passionate about.
Right. And your contribution is this concept from fear to freedom.
Yes.
Right? What are you most proud of with what you contributed to this?
At the risk of sounding prideful, which is not why I say this, but I will say that I think that when someone gets real and raw about their hardships and their story, whatever that story is, you have a story, everybody has a story. But when someone chooses to get real and raw for others to really relate and maybe get a glimpse of hope and possibility and maybe get some encouragement to take some risks, I think that's a big deal. And especially it's a big deal for me because I am ultra private. You would not know that based on this book or this interview. But my whole life I was bound in shame and fear and built a huge fortress around me. No one was ever going to get in. So I think that's what I'm most proud of, is actually the fact that freedom won and beat out fear. And not for myself and not for fame, but for the invitation of others.
I think that's just spectacular. I think, as I listened to you, I think I finally keyed in on the piece that had drawn me to you a couple of years ago, and it is that intensely private piece. And I know, again, the irony of that is here's a woman who sits behind a microphone, one day a week and talks to a million or so people and, puts a lot of information out there, through my website, personally through, Facebook and whatnot, but that with all that being said, up until a couple of years ago, I was definitely a fortress. There were very few people that were able to climb the wall, right?
That's right.
And the moment that I started to recognize that, my life had more to offer and that there was more that I was ready to receive from other people, that there was no nobility in doing it all yourself.
Right.
That was a transformational moment. And I think the same thing has happened for you. What, can you give a little tease about the checklist for your personal journey to freedom?
Sure. I'll give you a tease. But what I would say is truly, as I can talk about this a little bit more freely right now, it's an intense journey for anyone. And no matter what your fears are, it's not for the faint at heart.
No.
So just quickly, from the Incredible Life book in my chapter, From Fear to Freedom, I'll say that begin with the end in mind. What is it that you really want out of life? And choose to envision that and try and create that. Determine your core values. What do you value in life? In all areas of life, my quote is, when your values are clear, your decisions are easy. So begin living a value-based life versus living out of fear. Another is put a safety net in place. No matter what that looks like for you, if it's a friend or a counselor or a group of people, my safety net was really my relationship with God. Ultimately, knowing that no matter how hard and scary and tumultuous this journey would be, I really believed that he would not let me down. And who would want freedom for myself more than him? So that was my safety net. Put a safety net in place. Travel light, meaning you'll need grace, courage, forgiveness, and commitment, and gratitude. Lots of gratitude, but leave that extra baggage behind. Try not to carry too much with you. You'll need to travel light. And then choose the right travel companions. Choose people to come along with you. And these are the people who really, truly want to see you succeed.
Right.
And what I know is not everyone really does.
Amen.
I'm learning that the hard way. But choose the right travel companions, mentors. Associate yourself with other successful business people so that you can rise to, some of the knowledge they have or the practices they have, and mentors. And I'd love to say, if I can, that growing up in this little white homogenous federal way, there were no black people and I had no mentors ever until I got to college, except for when Oprah first came on the scene before she was ever even popular. She was just Oprah.
Right.
There was that black woman who was articulate. She seemed to be successful. She seemed to have risen above her adversity. And literally I started tuning into her because she modeled so much for me. And I could relate to her on many levels.
Right. It's nice. I think oftentimes we, at this point, take a bit for granted of what Oprah did. And there's some great gifts that she certainly has shared with lots of young professional women, for sure. So for everyone joining us today, to get your checklist for your personal journey from fear to freedom, you can find more information about Kim Crumpler and her work at her website, uniquelysavvy.com. You can also purchase the book through her website as well. And I just really appreciate you having spent the time with us today, Kim. So
thank you, Debbie.